I want to be clear about something before we begin. I did not do this as a wellness experiment. I did not do this for a video. I did it because my own lab results were telling me something I could no longer ignore. And what happened over those 30 days, physically, mentally, and biologically, changed the way I practice medicine and the way I think about food forever. My name is Dr. Julian Cross, and today I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened to my body, day by day, when I removed sugar completely for 30 days. The symptoms I didn't expect, the results that genuinely surprised my colleagues, and the science behind why sugar is doing far more damage to your body than you have been told. Stay with me through this entire video, because what I share around day 14 is something that no one talks about, and it may be the most important thing you hear about your health this year. Let's start at the beginning, why I did it. As a physician, I counsel patients on nutrition regularly. I talk about sugar, I explain the risks, I hand out the pamphlets, but I had never actually done it myself. And one morning, reviewing my own annual blood work, I saw numbers that made me pause. My fasting insulin was creeping up. My triglycerides were elevated. My C-reactive protein, a marker of systemic inflammation, was higher than it should have been for someone my age and activity level. I was not diabetic, I was not obese. By conventional standards, I was healthy, but I knew what those numbers meant. I knew where that trajectory leads if left unchecked. So I made a decision. 30 days. No added sugar, no refined carbohydrates, no fruit juice, no honey, no maple syrup, no artificial sweeteners. Nothing that triggers an insulin response beyond whole, unprocessed food. I told two colleagues about it. They smiled politely. One of them said, and I'm quoting directly, "You'll last 4 days." Here is what actually happened. Days 1 through 3, the withdrawal nobody warned me about. I want to be medically honest with you here because most content about quitting sugar glosses over this part entirely. By the afternoon of day 1, I had a headache. Not a mild one, a genuine, persistent, throbbing headache that I normally associate with dehydration or a long shift. By day 2, I was irritable. Not mildly irritable. My wife noticed before I did. By day 3, I experienced what I can only describe as a fog, a cognitive slowdown, difficulty concentrating, fatigue that felt disproportionate to my sleep. What was happening biologically is this. Sugar, specifically fructose and refined glucose, activates the dopamine reward pathway in the brain in a manner that researchers at Princeton University have compared directly to addictive substances. When you remove it abruptly, your brain responds with a withdrawal-like state. Your dopamine drops, your serotonin fluctuates. Your body, which has been relying on quick glucose hits for energy, suddenly has to begin shifting toward fat metabolism. That transition is not instant, and it is not comfortable. I want you to know this because if you try this yourself and you feel terrible in the first 3 days, that is not failure. That is your biology telling you exactly how dependent it had become. Days 4 through 7, the shift begins. By day 4, something changed. The headaches were gone. The fog began to lift. And I noticed something I hadn't experienced in years. I woke up on day 5 without an alarm, fully alert, before my phone went off. That almost never happens to me. My energy, which had previously followed a pattern of morning spike, post-lunch crash, afternoon coffee, evening fatigue, began to flatten out into something steadier, more consistent, more reliable. The science here is straightforward. When you eat sugar, your blood glucose rises sharply, your pancreas releases insulin, glucose is cleared, and you crash. Then you crave more sugar to recover. This cycle repeats all day, every day for most people. When you remove sugar, your blood glucose stabilizes. Insulin remains low. Your body begins oxidizing fat for fuel, a cleaner, longer-burning energy source. The crashes stop because the spikes stop. By day 7, I had not had an afternoon energy crash in 4 days. That alone felt extraordinary. Days 8 through 14. What happened to my body that I did not expect? This is the part I want you to pay close attention to. Around day 8, I noticed my clothing fitting differently. Not dramatically, but noticeably. My abdomen specifically. Now I want to explain what was happening here because it is not simply fat loss at this stage. It is something called visceral inflammation reduction. Sugar, particularly fructose, is metabolized almost exclusively in the liver. When consumed in excess, fructose drives the production of triglycerides, promotes fatty liver changes, and triggers the release of inflammatory cytokines throughout the body. These cytokines cause the tissues around your organs, your visceral tissue, to become inflamed and retain fluid. When you remove sugar, that inflammatory load begins to drop. The tissue calms, the fluid redistributes, the abdomen flattens. This is not water weight in the conventional sense. This is systemic inflammation receding from your body's core. By day 10, my skin had visibly changed. Colleagues remarked on it without me mentioning anything. One asked if I had started a new skincare routine. I had not. I had simply stopped feeding the glycation process that was aging my skin from the inside. Then came day 14, and this is the part I mentioned at the beginning. On day 14, I had a conversation with my own mind that I was not prepared for. I was sitting at my desk in the late afternoon, the exact time when I would normally reach for something sweet, and for the first time I realized I did not want it. Not that I was resisting, not that I was white-knuckling through a craving. The craving simply was not there. I sat with that for a long time. Because as a physician who understands dopamine, reward pathways, and habit loops, I knew what that meant. It meant the neurological reset was beginning. After 14 days without sugar, my brain's reward threshold had shifted. The baseline had recalibrated. I no longer needed the hit to feel normal. That moment changed how I think about sugar dependency in my patients forever. Days 15 through 21, the cognitive changes. By week 3, something was happening in my brain that I found genuinely difficult to articulate at first. My thinking was sharper, not in a dramatic movie montage way, but in a subtle, cumulative, unmistakable way. I was retaining information more easily. I was finishing complex tasks with less mental fatigue. My recall in patient consultations felt faster. I was sleeping more deeply. I know this because I track my sleep, and my deep sleep percentage had increased by nearly 40% compared to my baseline over the previous month. The research on this is compelling and growing. A 2020 study published in the journal Nutrients found that high sugar consumption is directly associated with impaired memory, reduced cognitive flexibility, and increased neuroinflammation, particularly in the hippocampus, the brain's primary memory center. Sugar drives brain inflammation the same way it drives body inflammation. Remove it, and the brain, like the body, begins to recover. I was experiencing that recovery in real time. Days 22 through 30, the lab results. On day 28, I repeated the blood panel that had prompted this experiment. I want to share the results with you directly because these are the numbers that genuinely surprised my colleagues. My fasting insulin dropped by 34% in 28 days. My triglycerides fell from 187 milligrams per deciliter to 129, a reduction of 31%. My C-reactive protein, my inflammatory marker, dropped from 2.8 to 1.1. That is a reduction of more than 60% in systemic inflammation in less than 30 days. My fasting glucose normalized. My LDL particle size shifted toward the larger, less dangerous pattern. My HDL, the protective cholesterol, increased. When I showed these results to a cardiologist colleague, his first question was, "What medication did you start?" When I told him the answer was no medication, only the removal of sugar, he was quiet for a moment. And then he said, "We really should be prescribing this before we prescribe anything else." He was right. What I learned that changes everything. 30 days of no sugar taught me things that years of medical education did not adequately prepare me for. The first thing is this: sugar is not just a dietary choice. It is a pharmacological agent that acts on your brain's reward system, your liver's metabolic function, your inflammatory pathways, your hormonal regulation, and your cellular aging processes simultaneously. Treating it casually, as simply calories to be counted, dramatically underestimates what it is doing inside your body. The second thing is this: the body's capacity to recover is faster than most people believe. 30 days is not a long time, and yet the biological changes I experienced and measured were profound. This tells us that the damage sugar does is not fixed, it is not permanent, it is ongoing, and when you stop the source, the healing begins almost immediately. The third thing, and this is the one I now share with every patient who will listen, the first 14 days are the cost of entry. They are hard, they are uncomfortable, they feel like failure, but they are not failure. They are the price of neurological freedom, and they are absolutely worth paying. What you can do starting today. I'm not telling you to quit sugar forever. I am not here to be prescriptive about your life or your choices, but I am asking you to consider this. What if you gave your body 30 days? Just 30. Not forever, 30 days. What would your inflammation markers look like? What would your energy feel like? What would your brain be capable of if it wasn't spending half its resources managing a blood sugar roller coaster? You do not have to be a physician to run this experiment. You just have to be curious enough to try. Start by removing the obvious sources: sodas, juices, packaged snacks, desserts, sweetened coffee drinks. Read ingredient labels. Sugar hides under more than 60 different names. Watch for anything ending in OSE. Watch for syrups, nectars, and anything labeled low fat, because low fat almost always means high sugar. Stock your kitchen with proteins, healthy fats, vegetables, and whole fruits in moderation. Eat meals that keep your blood sugar stable. Drink water, sleep, move your body, and on the days it feels hard, remember day 14. Because on the other side of those 2 weeks is a version of your biology that you may not have experienced in years, maybe ever. That version is worth fighting for. Let's bring this home. I quit sugar for 30 days. My fasting insulin dropped 34%. My inflammation dropped over 60%. My triglycerides normalized. My cognition sharpened. My skin changed. My sleep deepened. And my understanding of what sugar actually does to the human body was permanently and irreversibly altered. My colleagues were surprised by the results. Honestly, even I was surprised by the speed and magnitude of the changes. But the biology, when you understand it, is not surprising at all. It is entirely predictable. We just choose not to look at it directly. I hope this video helps you look at it directly. If it did, please hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps this channel reach people who genuinely need this information. Subscribe to Dr. Julian Cross for weekly content on the science of longevity, metabolic health, and evidence-based medicine that you can actually apply to your life. And leave a comment below. I want to know, have you ever tried cutting sugar? What happened? Or if you haven't, what's stopping you? I read every comment and I respond as often as I can. I'll see you in the next one. Your health is worth the discomfort. I promise you that.